So to our final speaker, Dave Harris. Dave is the founder of Communicate TV, who make interview-based videos for business. He's a former BBC producer, making programmes for TV and radio. Dave Harris. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. I pop up from the floor. That's my speciality. Thank you. What we've heard from Tim and Steve is very much, I suppose, in a way, is the theory. Tim talked about the sort of how the big corporates are doing it, and Steve talked about how practical realities of that. And what I want to talk to you about over the next 10 minutes is how you might do it in a sort of on a smaller scale. If you or your clients are small, medium-sized businesses, how can you do it? Because you don't have the same budgets as HSBC or Barclays or whatever. So what we base our approach on at Communicate TV is essentially what I learned at my time at the BBC when I worked with people like Faye. And we use what we call the broadcast method to try and create content very cost effectively. But as well as creating cost-effective content, of course, it has to be good content. It can't just be cost-effective and do nothing. So I'm going to try and show you how we do that. Two words, I think, sum it up quite nicely. That's authenticity and efficiency. So I'm going to talk to you about authenticity and efficiency. But before I do that, I'm going to play you a video because, you know, we are a video production company, so why wouldn't I? So I won't say anything about this. I'll just...
Hi, I'm Scott Wilson, President and Chief Executive Officer at CCOM. I'm standing in the brand new 30 Stern Street lobby. How exciting. We're going to be open for business on January 5th. The great thing about it is that all of the services you are expecting to be here with a brand new look, brand new brand, and all the same folks you're used to having serve you will be here.
Anybody spot anything wrong with that? Okay. Yeah, early one. That was a Canadian company, I think, actually. I found that on YouTube. And fair play to the guy. You know, he's the MD of the company, and he's thought, I want to get some video out there. And he's clearly done it himself, or he's got a mate to do it, you know, and he kind of doesn't quite know what to do, but he's not sure, is the camera on, or do I start now? And then I love the background noises. I think they're marvelous. So that's kind of, you know, he's having a go. So, you know, we shouldn't knock it too much, but I think the effect is you know, it has a sort of, it's questionable how effective that would be because of all the distractions and that sort of thing. Nice and passionate, as I'm sure that guy is about his business. So I want to show you another one now.
I think, first of all, to keep the children centre stage, it's very easy when you're divorcing to only think of your own position and your own concerns and your own anxieties. I think the minute people do think about how it's going to impact the children, they do adopt a slightly different position. So they become more amenable to one another. They recognise the need to work together to a common goal, and it creates some form of agreement. And once they've got one agreement, other things can flow from that.
Okay, so that was a client of ours, actually. I should be honest, that was one of our videos. And they are a family law firm, and their issue was that they wanted to do some of this content marketing stuff. They wanted to show how much they knew about this world by putting some video up there. And so they chose the interview video as the way to do that because it was very cost effective. And I think you'll agree, I mean, okay, that's not the most exciting video in the world, but it does get across very quickly and very efficiently the message that they particularly wanted to get across in that video. And it's a very specific point about, you know, the issue of children in a divorce and that sort of thing. There are lots of videos that they've done about lots of different issues to do with family law. We've probably done well over 100 videos for them now over a few different sessions. And they are starting to create a real feeling for that company, Woolley & Co, that they really do know what they're talking about. It gives them credibility, authenticity, and because they're real people talking in real voices, not scripted, those are all done just as interviews, that's a very effective method of getting across something in a very authentic way. And I think, you might disagree, but I think the second video was probably 100 times more effective than the first video in terms of getting across content. But you know, do feel free to disagree with that if you want to. So in terms of the sort of way you can use interview videos, I'm not going to play you these videos, these are just stills, but I just wanted to show you the different sort of things very quickly that you can do. So this first one on the top left is clearly a bit like the one you just saw. It's just a single person talking to get a message across. I think she worked in the hotel industry. The second one, this one here, is we've shown the interviewer in this one. So you get to hear the questions, which changes the feel of what you're listening to, because you hear the question, it gives it context. It lasts a little bit longer. That's the downside of hearing the question. But on the other hand, it can add credibility if there's an independent third party asking questions, sort of the Jeremy Paxman character without the teeth. So the fourth one here, which somebody in the audience will recognise that because this is her company. This is a chat show style. So the nice thing about a chat show is that it can lend itself to a bit more humour because there's more people interacting and it can be quite fun to do. It has the disadvantage that it's harder to keep it shorter because obviously, particularly if more than one person is speaking and that sort of thing. But it's a nice way of capturing material. Also, the participants can feel a little more relaxed because they're not on their own. And the final one with the geezer sitting in a lorry here, that's what we call reporter-led style. So it's more of a documentary, maybe 1.5, 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes long, but a reporter at the beginning saying, we're here today to meet so-and-so, to find out about such and such, and that sort of thing. And again, that's a different style. But fundamentally, they're all using the interview to drive the message, to drive the narrative, and that's very important. The other thing I wanted to talk about, so hopefully I've convinced you about the authenticity issue, but efficiency. How can we be efficient with this stuff? Now, one of the traditional problems with video is that it was very expensive. So the sort of video that Steve referred to, you know, the big sort of corporate film that you used to get people in a room to watch, and now obviously would go online. I remember when they used to arrive in Jiffy envelopes on VHS tapes. That was quite a long time ago. But they were very expensive. And that sort of, if you like, flagship video, showcase video, they are difficult to produce and to produce well. But more than that, the point is that nobody really cares about them anymore. Nobody really wants to watch them anymore because they think, so what? And I think fundamentally, you've always got to ask that so what question. You've got to ask, what is it the person who I want to view this video, what do they care about? What do they want to see? And if the answer is a big corporate video with palm trees and cheesy music, I'd be very surprised because I think most people simply don't give a damn about that sort of thing. What they want is information that gets messages across, gives them something useful. That is what content marketing is all about. So what that means in practice is that you have to find a way of creating a lot of content very quickly. And that brings us back to the interview, because the interview is a very easy way of creating good content very quickly. So what you need to do in practice is you need to have a little bit of preparation, not a huge amount, but you need to think about what those key messages are that you want to get across. And you need to therefore decide what are the likely questions that are going to enable people to answer in a way that gets those messages across. You need to choose the right people to do the interviews, obviously people that are knowledgeable about the stuff you want to talk about. You need an appropriate location to film it in, so a nice office, a boardroom. You know, it can be anywhere really. It doesn't matter as long as it doesn't distract from the interview. And then, of course, and I would say this, wouldn't I? You need a professional crew to film it. Now, I'm not going to bang on too much about this, but I think professionalism goes a long way in creating something that people actually like to see. It's not that they'll really notice that it's professional, but they will notice if it's not. So if you do it yourself, or you get your mate to come in and do it for you, as I suspect our Canadian friend did, then you will notice that it's crap. The sound's bad, the focus might not be quite right, the lighting will be awful. So if you get in a professional company, and there are many video companies to choose from, other video companies are available, you get what you pay for, and they will produce a professional result. So that's very important, I think. So a small amount of pre-planning, use a professional company, and nice, reasonable location, and you can create a lot of content very quickly. So I'm going to finish by telling you about a real example that we did about a year ago for a charity in London. It's a slightly extreme example, but I think it serves to illustrate the point quite well. This charity in London they were having a new website, and they knew that they wanted to populate it with a great deal of video. They knew video was the thing they wanted to get across their messages. So they bought into the content marketing thing, and they realized that video was the great way of doing it. So they approached us and said, how can we do this? We haven't got much money. What can we do? So it turned out they were having an event in London at which there would be some of their members, because they're a membership organisation, as well as most of their senior management. So we turned up at their event in central London, and we set up a little studio in an adjacent room to where they were doing their thing. And we took along a production assistant as well, because it was going to be quite a complicated day, because there were a lot of people to get through. And basically, we got people out of the seminar one by one throughout the day, and we brought them into our little studio, and we had a chat with them, and we interviewed them. And that was members of the senior management team talking about what the charity did and why they were there and so on and so forth. But it was also members of the charity who were there to give testimonials and to give very powerful testimonial about what it was, what it was they got from the charity, and that's what they really wanted to populate this site with. We also, incidentally, filmed the seminar as well, so we were doing quite a lot of different things at once. But anyway, the point is that we spent the whole day there. We charged them something in the region of £3,000, and we created 90 videos, 90 videos out of that day. Now, that is exceptional to get that many videos, but that's what we did. And I think if you do the maths, which I'm sure you already have, it's about £33 a video. Which I think is good value for money for professional video, whichever way you cut it. Now, I'm not saying that every time you hire a company like ours, you're going to get 90 videos out of it, but it just goes to show what you can do with a lot of planning and quite a lot of effort on the day. You can create a great deal of content. And in case you're interested, this is what 90 videos looks like. Oh, it's still going. There you go, 90 videos, and they're all now on the site of this charity called the Ella Foundation. And I think that they are pretty pleased with that, because they got huge value for money out of it. So they've got a sort of 2 years worth of videos there, So sadly they won't need us to use us again for a while, but we're working on that. So my message, I think, today is there are ways of creating good professional content quickly, easily, and cost efficiently. You just got to adopt a sensible format and a plan, and you can do it. Thank you very much.